Hi, everybody. I'm Sai. I'm a senior product marketer here at Zoho Sign. And this webinar is going to be about what we've added to the application in 2024, what has changed to the existing behavior of the application, and possibly a peek at what is coming soon. So, just to give you a quick rundown of the agenda, the first 15 minutes of this session, I'll just talk about how we see business agreements being done today, and I'll give you an overview of what Zoho Sign does, why did we build the app, and how are we changing the application, and in what direction is it progressing, followed by the main crux of this session, which is a recap of everything that we did in 2024 and a quick peek at what is coming in 2025, followed by answers to your questions. Now, the answers to your questions bit is at the very bottom here, but I will actually take breaks in between to get your questions. So do not worry about having to stick through the entire webinar in case you need to be elsewhere over the next 45 minutes or so. So let's quickly establish this one sort of business principle that we all can agree on, and that is the world runs on agreements, meaning everything that we do in business is on the basis of agreements. But it is not limited to business. Everything that we do in our life, even personal, is based on agreements. We mostly tend to sort of have everything keyed down. Even our relationships within our social circles, our families, they happen to be on agreements, just not penned down in a piece of paper, right? But in the business world, these agreements are definitely penned down, and it isn't enough that you just pen them down, but you also have to execute them or process them by capturing signatures. And if they are very transactional in nature, like a product being sold, then there has to be a payment that is also followed through after the signatures are captured. So the entire service is being rendered, the transaction occurs, but all of it is set off by the paperwork being signed. Now, this paperwork being signed, the process general involves a lot of steps, which involves drafting the agreements themselves. And as a business that deals with a lot of customers, that deals with a large volume of transactions, you will have numerous paperwork for each associated transaction or deal, which means you're going to be doing this over and over again. And all of these documents require you to not only draft them, but also collaborate with your stakeholders, collaborate with the different people that are your counterparties, finalize on the paperwork, and only then do you make copies of the paperwork to be sent out for signatures. And if you're doing this manually, I mean, we are in 2024. I don't see a reason why you should be, but if you're still doing it manually with pen and paper, then it also involves having to collect the copies after signatures, waiting for the turnaround, and then storing it all in a physical space for you to formally keep your records and retrieve it as and when you need it for accounting and so on. Now, this process, regardless of how you do it, whether you do it by pen and paper or you do it online, has sort of undergone a change in approach over the past 3 or 4 years. And this is primarily driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, which sort of saw the world undergo a massive digital transformation wave. And because of the nature of the pandemic, businesses had to entirely shut down their offices and operate remotely. Workspaces became hybrid, where only critical workers were called in and everybody else were asked to work from home. And a lot of people started using digital devices almost in their entirety, meaning earlier a lot of meetings used to be in person, documents used to be on paper, but now it was almost always digital first, and only when it really needed to be on a piece of paper or there needed to be an in-person meeting did it actually occur. Not just that, our economies are all intertwined, and we have a lot of migrant laborers, we have businesses that do a lot of products, where products are exchanged, services are exchanged across borders and so on. Even that was fairly physical earlier, with people traveling, with a lot of services being shipped and so on. But all of that, if it did not actually involve the exchange of real physical tangible goods, had now become something that was done virtually, yet it continued to occur across time zones, meaning people were no longer migrating, or people were no longer constantly traveling to other countries to get these done, and they were doing it from the comfort of their homes in their home countries, where the laws are often sort of changing every so few hundred odd kilometers or miles. So all of these things in general started to affect the way we did paperwork. in a good way, but also it did present its challenges. So everything moved online, but with moving online comes with its its own set of challenges, and that is one, doing business across time zones is always something that keeps us thinking about whether what we are sending across is being sent across in a time sensitive manner, meaning if you are sitting in a different time zone and transacting with another person elsewhere, then you would have to send something out for them to view, review, or sign at a time that they are active. So now that you're not meeting in person, you need to be sort of mindful of time zones. And of course, like I said, you're doing the paperwork that you would normally do, but from a digital device, and you're doing it over and over again, which means you're just pressing a bunch of buttons, looking at a bunch of screens over and over again, which is bound to tire you out, meaning there can be slip ups in concentration. It can make you prone to errors and so on. And more concerningly, a lot of people started taking issue with the absence of trust in the process, meaning you're doing a lot of this online, so you're not really meeting somebody in person. So there is this human connection of always seeing what we're doing missing when we do transactions online, which was costing a loss of trust. And of course, with the internet, there is always the worry of people snooping around to get hold of your data. There were worries of privacy being breached. There was worry of confidential information being exposed, and there was also worry of non-compliance because you're transacting across borders and things like that. So when it comes to paperwork in general, all of these put together can actually present a low confidence in your business deals. And that can lead to a lot of uncertainty in your business and cause you to make questionable decisions. And that is really what we're attempting to solve here with Zoho Sign. We want Zoho Sign to be a handy tool that can be your complete digital signature solution that allows you to get documents signed online, collect signatures and approvals via workflows in an easy and secure manner, and also leverage advanced features that we have like templates, sign forms, bulk sending and signing, so that you do your operations in a more efficient manner and enhance workplace productivity to stay on top of your business. And to add to this, we also provide you with the ability to add your own branding to all the communication, which also allows you in turn to sort of build trust in the process, and the documents themselves are being digitally signed in a manner that is compliant with the local law, thereby producing legally binding documents. And these documents are also accompanied by supplementary legal information, such as all the audit trails and the tracking information that is required to sort of keep on top of your signer's progress, and any reports that you might need that would go with these paperwork for accountability purposes. And not just these, but we're also building in handy generative AI features, which allow you to step up this game even further by, say, adding fields automatically, summarizing documents for quick reviews, and so on. So it's ideally an application that we've built that you can have at the tip of your fingertips on your device, mobile device, or on your computer, that allows you to completely get all your paperwork done in a synchronous manner across platforms. So Zoho Sign is an application that we had always kept in mind that we wanted to have a sort of a synchronous flow, as I just mentioned, and as a result, from day one, our focus has been to build it out across platforms. So though there is a very fully functional web application that you can access from your browser on any device, we also have native applications that are more intuitive in terms of the platform user experience on devices that run on Android or say the Apple operating systems, iOS, iPadOS, macOS, etc., and Windows. The advantage of this is that you can always be sort of carrying your documents with you at any time, provided you're connected to the internet. And you can also start your workflow from your workspace where you have your laptop open. But let's say you have to quickly move to, say, board a flight or be somewhere else. You can pause what you're doing on your laptop and pick it up on your phone and just get it done on the go. So that sort of a mobility also allows you to get things done in an easier manner. Not to mention, Zoho Sign is also one of the applications within the Zoho suite of applications that integrates really well and deeply with the rest of the Zoho apps. So Zoho does offer about 50 other applications for you to run your business, your daily operations entirely online. And each of these serve their own purposes in terms of which function they address, which departments they work the best for, and so on. But all of them involve paperwork at some level or the other. So it is really handy to have something like Zoho Sign which neatly integrates with each of these applications, sits in within each of these applications, allowing you to trigger workflows that use the documents that are being generated from these applications to be sent out for signatures or approvals, collect those signatures and approvals, and brought right back into those applications. So there's very little, no, very minimal context switching or tab switching and app switching that takes place that throws off your attention. Now, this capability in particular is not just something that we extend within the Zoho ecosystem, but we also extend to a great extent within other ecosystems like the Microsoft application ecosystem or the Google application ecosystem as well. And apart from this, we also integrate with a handful of CRM solutions, cloud storage solutions, and even other integration platforms which extend the integration capabilities of Zoho Sign to be able to connect with thousands of other online applications that you use on a daily basis. Now, if all of this is not quite your cup of tea, you want to build something that is custom. You want to build something that works in a seamless manner with your own in-house application or website or so on. You also have the option to go with our APIs, our webhooks, software development kits, and other developer tools, which allows you to bring the Zoho Sign functionality within your applications and have build your own interface for it and have the data flow the way that you want it so that you can operate it directly within your applications and your environments. Now, in terms of what Zoho Sign offers that really puts us apart is, I would say, our ability to identify the lack of trust in different regions, especially where the compliance is a little lacking, and build solutions that bridge the gap. Just to give you an example, in countries like, say, India, where document signing digitally is not valid until the identity of the signer is captured and verified with a government issued signature or an ID, it is really difficult to enforce trust in the process of digital signing when you just see somebody's signature on a document, right? And similarly, if you take countries in the EU, there is the concept of qualified electronic signatures, wherein specific qualified trust services would need to verify the identity and do a background verification of somebody's sort of credit history and so on before issuing a signature certificate to them that which can then be used to sign documents. So these sort of third party services which are accredited or are licensed by authorities, governments, and institutions that have been nationalized, they automatically add trust into the process of getting documents signed. The reason I say this is because uh, let's say you sign a document digitally and it happens to be missing one of these key compliance requirements. Now, if the document is disputed and you take the case to court, the court will then leave the onus of proving the document was signed by the parent signers to you, the document owner. And at that point, you would need to once again run after your signers to have them all come and testify in court. That's not really something that's practical, considering just getting signatures in itself is difficult. So imagine getting somebody to appear in front of a court to testify, right? So that sort of problem is what is being addressed by building trust or trust services into the signing process, wherein the identity of a person is automatically captured, the integrity of a document is automatically captured, and any additional payments are automatically captured alongside the process, and the trail and the proof for that is attached with the documents so that it is indisputably proven in court when a case is filed, and you don't really have to go through the trouble of bringing more people to testify. So just to give you an idea of what sort of trust services we have at this point in time, we have identity linked digital authentication, we have identity linked digital signatures, we have trusted document timestamping, We have electronic stamp duty payment. We also have blockchain based timestamping. And to top it off, we also recently integrated with a vendor to provide conservation certificates, but that's not something that is prevalent across geographies, perhaps just within the one country that we did it for. But yeah, so if you recognize some of these vendors, then it's good because at some point in life you would have possibly been required to interact with their services, and you should sort of rest easy knowing that these services are now available within Zoho Sign, so you can sign documents with confidence. Now, the reason why I'm talking about signing documents with confidence is simply because, as I said earlier, when you do business across borders, it's not just the time zone that varies, it's also the laws that vary. And digital signatures in general have about 160 odd laws, taking into account so many odd countries that have recognized the process as legal. And each of these laws have their own specifications, but broadly, they all classify the types of digital signatures that are accepted and can be used into three different tiers. That is simple or standard electronic signature, advanced electronic signature, and qualified electronic signatures. I don't want to describe what each of these entails, but this is just enough information I feel at this point to let you know that these are the three levels that might be required across different regions. To just give you an example, Europe only accepts qualified electronic signatures for high level business transactional paperwork. And in countries like India, in countries in Southeast Asia, in countries like Mexico, you would need to have some form of identity linked signature or conservation signature or document timestamping, which often falls under the advanced electronic signature category. And in Africa as well, you would need an advanced electronic signature, which often requires somebody having to go through face-to-face verification and the likes of these stringent measures that we undertake to get certified. So Zoho Sign, by virtue of sort of integrating with the various trust services that I showed you earlier, automatically complies with the respective level of signature required across the different geographies, leaving you with a lot less to worry about when you set up your workflows to get documents signed. Uh, and on top of all of this, Zoho Sign automatically extends Zoho's platform security and privacy measures to your paperwork and your workflows, meaning all your documents are encrypted at rest and in transit, and your access to your document repository or your account is secured with single sign-on that you set up with multi-factor authentication, which can add the additional layer of sort of authentication before somebody can get access to your account. And yeah, we pride ourselves on being a very privacy conscious platform, meaning we do not run any ads on our platform, nor do we place any third party trackers. And your data security and your data compliance, your compliance framework, your environment is very important to us to ensure that you comply with the laws and our services aren't being misrepresented or misused. So we do provide options for automatic cloud backup, a separate module to comply with health sciences regulations, both in the US and in the EU. We also respect data privacy laws, we respect data residency laws. So we do have local data centers across geographies, allowing you to store data within borders that you're comfortable with so that you can comply with various laws that are enacted by your government. Commonly, the ones that we know we keep getting asked about are like the GDPR, HIPAA Act, and so on. And we regularly undergo audits with the firms like ISO, SOC, in order to get ourselves certified in various industry standards that are sort of the norm these days for a cloud software company. So now let's move on to the main section of this webinar, which is a recap of what we've added to Zoho Sign in 2024. So I'm going to be just listing out the various features that came in an order of sort of say importance, or rather order of requests that we received simply by volume, and just explain what these features do. And hopefully that helps you understand what scenarios they would apply to, right? So first, let's take a look at our features and enhancements that went live. The first thing that I would like to talk about is user groups, roles, and permission profiles. Now, this was one of the most requested updates that we made to our applications, and that was something that we had been building for quite some time. And that The reason that it took so long is simply because of the way it helps you set your account up. So you can now create user groups, which are essentially groups of users that you've already added to your platform, which helps you align users within, say, teams or departments and assign them groups so that you can then use that group to eventually build the roles and the permission profiles you would associate with them. User roles have a slightly different way of setting up. It is essentially a way for you to define what data is visible to anybody associated with that role. So within your organization, you have your user groups, which are essentially, like I said, just teams or departments. And then you would have your folders where you're storing documents. You would have your various individual users who might be operating in different capacities. You would have your own templates. Now, depending on the hierarchy or the structure of your organization, different people might need access to different levels or different segments of data. Now, this user role concept allows you to define exactly what each role can see and can access. And that is extended further by the profiles, which is essentially a way of determining what permissions are given to each of these users or user groups. So, in essence, you set up a user group, then you set up roles to determine what data is visible to each of your users, and then you set up the profiles to determine what actions they can perform on the data that is visible to them. So just to give you an example, if you have an HR team and then you have your entire organization, your HR would essentially require access to all of the employee policy information, payroll information, etc. But at an employee level, each employee would only have access to their own information, right? So that is the kind of sort of streamlined data visibility and segmentation that you can set up with this particular feature. So I hope I know that what I've explained made sense, and you can hopefully set it up and see how you can achieve the kind of boundaries that you want within your data and the actions that your users can perform. Moving on, we have formula fields. Now, this is fairly self-explanatory. So within Zoho Sign, you have the different fields of information that you add to documents on which you collect information. And to that, we've now made the addition of formula fields. So essentially, the purpose they serve is that there are fields that you often collect information on, and then you use that information to calculate further information within a document, right? So earlier, that limitation existed where you couldn't calculate or rather fill in information into derivative fields. Rather, you would need to manually do it and then enter the information manually. So now we've eliminated that manual process by allowing you to set up dynamic fields that allow you to define formula which takes inputs from the other fields that the signers have entered and calculates the value to be filled in. And following suite along no that type of feature, we also have conditional fields. Now this is in essence exactly what it says. This allows you to add, remove, and manage fields within your documents depending on the inputs that were put in into other fields that were in the earlier sections of the document. Meaning, if you have some fields which are not required to be filled as a result of the inputs entered in the previous field, then this field would you can set it up such that it doesn't appear. But if you want a few additional fields to collect information on depending on how somebody enters their information earlier, then that can also be set up. Just to give you an example, let's say you're collecting address information on a form, right? Often the state field appears only after the country field is filled because some countries have a state system, some countries don't, right? So depending on the value entered in the country field, you can choose to display a state field and take that information. So that's the kind of conditional logic that you can set up, and you can actually mix and match this with the formula fields to have a very sophisticated way of putting data across within your documents. Um, Moving along, there's also custom fields. So this is essentially a way of creating your own field that you can standardize and save within your account and have it be available for other users in your organizations to use. So often you would have documents that you are creating templates with, and you would need to create one or two fields which goes in several pages. But every time you create a template or a workflow, you would need to create this field over and over again, where you have to give the field value, field name, the data label for referencing, the field validation, all of these things, the formatting, etc. But what if this was a field that you were doing the same thing over and over again for? then you can just create this field as a standalone field and save it within your account and just drag and drop that and use it across all documents and templates as and when you need them. And on top of this, you can share it with the rest of your organization so that other users can also benefit from being able to use it. So that's exactly what we brought here. And this also can be used alongside conditional fields and custom fields, wherein you can mix and match to achieve a very sophisticated way of filling out documents. Next up, we have witness signing. So this is something that was requested by a lot of people in very specific industries, such as the legal industry, the real estate industry, where often a signer is asked to be accompanied by a witness to sign off on the documents as it is required by law. So just for the purpose of having a witness, our initial workflows did not allow for a witness to be nominated unless they were already known to the sender of the document earlier. But now we've modified the functionality of the way witness signing works and brought it in as a feature in itself, wherein you can choose it as a role and have a signer be assigned up to two witnesses, where the signer can then nominate the witnesses, or if the sender, as I mean, you as the sender know who the witness is going to be, you can then fill in their details, and the document would follow suit as the signer signs it to be sent to them for them to sign, attesting to the fact that they witnessed the signing process. The obvious advantage of this is that it can reduce the chance of fraud and offer an increased assurance in the signing process itself. But there are endless possibilities to how you can go about using this. Perhaps you can use this to sort of add an additional layer of redundancy when it comes to getting documents signed with multiple parties and so on. We leave it to you to imagine what use cases you can achieve with this. Similar to witness signing, another feature that that we were repeatedly asked to build was the option to have signer groups. Now, this, in essence, is basically just a group of people who all have the same signatorial capacity within an organization, meaning they can all sign on behalf of each other and they operate as a group. Often, just one person signing a document is sufficient, and but everybody would then have access to that information as they're all within the same team or the same level of clearance. Just to give you an example, let's say you have a legal person that you're working with within your organization that often okays all the contracts, the agreements that you sign. Now, this person may or may not be available at all times, but most organizations at a larger scale would have an entire team of legal representatives. So any one person signing off on the document would be sufficient for them to proceed with the contract. So if your legal associate is sort of unavailable due to any circumstances, then them being a part of a signer group and the document being sent to all the people in that signer group would mean anybody else can pick it up and sign it and review it on their behalf. Just to quickly give you a rundown of few other enhancements that we built into the product. So we now support multiple recipient groups in bulk send. This is a fairly nuanced feature because not often do people come across a requirement that needs this feature. But let me try and do justice to explaining it in a manner that you understand. So let's say the current bulk send feature allows you to create copies of a document to be sent in bulk to a large list of recipients, right? So if you have a document that needs to be duplicated 5 times and sent to 5 different people, you would use the bulk send feature. You would create a CSV file and have their information stored as rows and import that into the workflow, allowing you to duplicate the document and create 5 separate requests sent to each of the recipients. But imagine a scenario where there are other dynamic recipients that follow right after these recipients. Giving you an example, let's say you are a teacher in a school and you have a trip that you're taking your class on. You have about 20 students in your class, and you would need to get a form of sort of uh, consent signed off by the students who are willing to participate in the trip, but not just them but also their parents, because parental consent and so on. So obviously you would need a workflow that would send the documents out to each of your class kids, followed by each of their respective parents, right? How would you go about achieving that? That is what this particular feature solves. So now what you can do is you can create a CSV with the rows as you normally have for the amount of requests that need to be created, the number of duplicates that need to be made. But for each of these rows, you can have multiple columns stating the information of subsequent signers that follow suit within the workflow. And each of the column headers can then be used to map to each of the recipient roles within the workflow. Now, do note that I mentioned recipient roles within the workflows because this can only be done from templates and it cannot be used from the send from signatures workflow. It can only be done when you have a template where you've defined the roles of multiple recipients. In that case, you can bulk import multiple dynamic recipients and you can map each of the roles name and email to the column headers to allow you to create as many recipients as you need for you to send the document out for signing. Next up, fairly simple enhancement, and this is when you have multiple documents added to an envelope, you can choose to merge some of them into files, meaning let's say you have an envelope of about 4 documents and you want to merge them into a single file, or you want to merge 2 of them into one file and leave the other 2 as it is. That can now be done by simply adding the documents and selecting the documents and click on merge documents. And this allows you to just it is just a way of managing the number of files within an envelope so that when you download the request and the information associated with the request, you don't end up with multiple files that cause confusion or multiple files that end up cluttering the folder onto which you're downloading things. Next, we have another minor enhancement, and this is the ability to group checkbox fields. So checkbox is a field that we've had in Zoho Sign for quite some time now. It is a fairly independent standalone field that can be added next to information that needs to be checked on a document. However, there are some times where you might have multiple checkboxes, but you need to apply some validation or some condition as to how the checkboxes are sort of ticked. So you may have, say, for example, a diet preferences checkbox, right? So you can allow people to check boxes basis on the basis of what their diet preferences would be. But it does not make sense for somebody to check, say, multiple diet preferences or check more than 4 or 5 diet preferences. So you can impose limits like the minimum number of check boxes to be checked or a maximum number of check boxes to be checked or even set a range. And you can group these checkboxes which are within the similar field categories so that it makes sense from a contextual perspective. So this is just a very minor enhancement, but I see that it does have its requirement in some scenarios of document signing. So that's basically what we've attempted to solve here. Next up, we have a very important legal requirement that was posed to us by a lot of customers, and that is often the documents that are signed are accompanied by a certificate of completion and an audit trail, but this only happens after a document is signed, right? So in an extended, prolonged workflow, having multiple signers, often the context of who is signing the document, what stage of the signing is the document in, is missed with the recipients being unable to access that information as the signing is in progress. So this feature now allows you to sort of access the document history, see who sent it, what time it was sent on, what were the different activities performed earlier before they access this document, who has signed it, and what is the workflow that is about to be executed after they sign it. So it gives them the entire picture of the workflow as they're included in the process so that they are more aware of what's happening rather than having to wait until the end of all the signatures being completed. Now, here's something for the developers that work with Zoho Sign APIs and webhooks often. So earlier we had API webhooks which could just be set up by setting up your callback URL and setting up the scenarios where your webhooks would be triggered. But now we sort of chosen to make it a little more secure by adding HMAC based security, and that is hash based message authentication codes. This is simply a form of sort of signing the webhook payload in a way that can be verified on the receiver side, where the signature on the payload can be used to check if it is coming from the intended source, so that the payload cannot be spoofed and data cannot be just randomly injected into your systems. And on top of that, you also have the ability to set criteria to trigger callbacks now. Earlier, it was just scenarios that you would want your callbacks triggered, but these scenarios may occur sort of all the time. And for each of these matching scenarios, you would have callbacks being triggered. So if you take an example for document being signed, for every document that is being signed, you would have a callback being triggered. But what if you want to sort of parse that information even further to only act upon some documents that are being signed? What if you want to act on documents that are being signed which are contained only within a specific folder, or which contain only a specific pattern of a name or a specific recipient and so on? So these sort of document filters have been brought into this to set up even more fine-tuned criteria to allow you to have very fine-grained callbacks that go into your system, allowing you to act on this information that you receive via webhooks in a better manner. And one common complaint that we kept getting was all the notification emails that were being sent to the recipients were not customizable within Zoho Sign. Of course, the documents, the emails that were sending the documents out for signing, sending the documents out for approval, etc., were allowed to be customized, but the notifications themselves remained uncustomizable up until this point. So now we're glad to let you know that you can customize these as well, and even for these, you can add your branding and make it as as you would want your other emails to look like. With that, let me just quickly come to the last set of enhancements that we've added. So now, earlier you used to be able to sign documents with USB and PFX based signatures, and you also used to be able to sign documents in bulk. But the two did not coexist, or rather, the two did not coincide where you could bulk sign documents with a USB or a PFX, but that is now possible on the web application. And adding to this, the attachment files that could be uploaded by signers were limited only to 10 megabytes in size, but now that has been extended or increased to 25 megabytes. And something else that we've added is also the ability for administrators to define some reasons that would be shown to the signers who are signing documents. So often when a signer signs a document, it is accompanied by a visible glyph on the document where they place their signature, and this contains a reason that the signer would have to type in. But this presents a sort of a difficult experience for the user if they're accessing it via mobile or on a device with the screen sizes not being as optimal as they'd like. So to avoid such poor experiences, we have come up with the option for the administrators to set up predefined reasons that the signers can just simply choose from as they're signing the documents. And if that still doesn't satisfy or suit their nature or their decision to sign the document with, then they can go ahead and type their reason out. We've also made some enhancements to document administration. Earlier, you used to be able to export reports and the activity history of your account, the audit trail, and so on in the CSV format. And of course, the CSV format is fairly insecure, and it's often in plain text, meaning if that data is left lying around, it could cause a breach of confidential information. So now we've chosen to provide the ability to export these reports in a password protected PDF format so as to be so as to get your information in a secure manner and store your reports and safeguarded from sort of unauthorized access. We've also given the option to filter documents in the document list view by the recipient name. Earlier, it was only possible to filter by recipient email, but often email is not something we keep at the top of our head. So a name would be an easier option to filter with. So we've gone ahead and provided that. And once again, for developers who often work with the parameters and the information that is being parsed as they send API calls and the various payloads that accompany the development data transfers. We've provided a debug info dialog box, which allows you to access your data center, your organization portal ID, request ID, and document ID, which can be used to process information better or can be used in support related operations for troubleshooting and so on. So in terms of integrations and applications that we've added to Zoho Sign this year, some of these are going to be purely from a legality and a compliance perspective. So if it doesn't apply to you, do not worry about not really understanding it. So yeah, the first one is for the region, the country of Kenya, where digital signatures are only valid if the certificates are issued by certification service providers that are registered in Kenya. So they would need to issue a certificate, which would then translate to being called an advanced electronic signature, and only that can be used to sign documents for the documents to be considered legally valid within Kenya. So to satisfy that scenario, since we have quite the market in African countries, especially in developing countries like Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and so on, we have integrated with a couple of trust service providers. The first one being Tenda World, who will do a verification of the signer at the time of enrollment and provision them with a certificate that can be used to sign documents within Zoho Sign. Similarly, for Saudi Arabia, they have their own set of laws, and even that mandates, the use of digital signature certificates from one of their own certificate authorities that are registered in Saudi Arabia and accredited by their own digital government authority and the Communication Space and Technology Commission. So and that vendor that we've integrated with is EMDA. So EMDA is the certificate provider who provides the signers with the certificate that is legally valid within Saudi Arabia for you to sign documents. But not it's not something that just happens as it is, because here the verification process is slightly different because it happens entirely online, and it happens via Nafat. It is an app that is used in Saudi Arabia that concerns with the digital identity being used to verify and render services online. So the Nafat app is something that almost all Saudi Arabian citizens and residents have on their phone, where a pop-up would appear every time they attempt to sign a document using the EMDA integration, wherein they would need to enter their national ID or their IKAMA and perform the authentication to verify their identity and provide their consent, which would then be recorded onto the certificate that is being issued by EMDA to sign the document. Only then would this particular document be considered legally valid. And since we also have our own data center in Saudi Arabia now, it made sense for us to go ahead and introduce this functionality for us to be able to provide services in a seamless fashion. Now, we also integrated with Evro Trust, who are a qualified trust service provider based out of the European Union. So they offer electronic signatures across the globe, but in the EU, by virtue of being a QTSP, they offer qualified electronic signatures, but they also offer advanced electronic signatures in other geographies, particularly in Kenya, where you have the option of choosing between Tenda World or Evrotrust to sign documents. This way, whatever documents that you sign with your certificate from Evrotrust, they would be valid across the globe, especially in the EU and in Kenya. Moving on to Mexico, which has a completely unique requirement when it comes to digital signatures. Over here, it's not the identity that so much is required to be sort of robust in the signing process, but rather the document contents in itself and the integrity of the document upon the signing of the document. Meaning, the authorities in Mexico have determined that it's not the signature that often is disputed, but the contents of the document that are disputed. So they have mandated the process of having a conservation certificate added to each of the signed documents after it has been signed. And this conservation certificate would then need to be issued by a trust services provider who are registered in Mexico and are approved by the Ministry of Economy in Mexico. So for that purpose, we've integrated with PSC World, who now certify documents once the signature workflow is completed and issue it with a NORM 151 certification, which is the name of the law. And that certificate information is available in the certificate of completion that accompanies documents. So, people in Mexico can sign documents without having to worry about, the government is going to accept their documents or not. Next up, so this is what I believe somebody had just asked. Do we have a topping for Begin by Zoho CRM that allows documents to be sent via Zoho Sign? Yes, now we do. You can install this topping within Begin, and it allows you to send documents for signatures directly from different modules like contacts, pipelines, and companies, allowing you to set up the workflow, send the document, track the document from Begin, and also have the completed document saved back to the Begin associated with the respected record. So if you've used our integration with Zoho CRM, the functionality is pretty much the exact same as Zoho CRM, but I imagine Begin being a CRM for smaller businesses, most people would be on the would have used Begin before they would have even looked at Zoho CRM, considering the vast broader applicability of Zoho CRM. But nonetheless, they say that there are about 4 to 5 times the number of small businesses as there are enterprises these days. So if we do the math, the numbers are going to be such that soon enough, Begin by Zoho CRM integration from Zoho Sign will be the most popular integration that we have, and it will far surpass the integration that we have with Zoho CRM itself. Other updates within Zoho, a couple of small ones. So we did the usual update that normally goes along with the Apple releases for the year. So Apple released its iOS 18, iPadOS 18, and macOS Sequoia earlier this year. So we obviously updated our applications to support their newer features that are included in these operating system updates. So this includes control center widgets, camera capture extension, the translation API, the Spotlight search, which semantic Spotlight search, and of course Apple Intelligence, because they have their own AI thing going. And all of this is not just added within our old interface, but we've also completely refreshed the interface that we've had on the Apple platform now. So you will be treated to a fresh look when you use the application. And apart from this, we've also refreshed our interface with the Zoho People integration, where earlier it was fairly, though straightforward, it was a little difficult to access within modules. But I think the People team has made UI changes that are make it more accessible to set up templates and get workflows processed. Sorry. In terms of third-party integrations, we've now introduced a chatbot in Microsoft Teams. Now, this is a conventional chatbot. It does not use generative AI. It is just a standard bot with a set of fixed commands. But nonetheless, it does allow you to achieve most of the common data fetching and data pushing requests that you would need with Zoho Sign. So you can check the status of documents, you can check what documents you need to sign, you can schedule documents for signature and set up workflows as well. All of this can be achieved within Teams by simply raising these commands with the chatbot. But if you're looking for something with generative AI, fret not, as we are working to bring natural language prompts via Copilot soon, and it's already something that's close to release. But we are in the final testing phase of releasing that. And provided you have your Microsoft 365 account and Zoho Sign accounts integrated, you should be able to access. Zoho Sign tasks, documents, information, and perform tasks directly from any of the Microsoft apps using Copilot and natural language processing prompts. Apart from this, if you are from India and you use our e-stamping integration, we now have the option for you to add your contact details so that we can send you the physical stamp paper that is generated during transactions. Now, it is the case with e-stamping that the stamp duty gets paid online and e-stamping challan is generated, but a physical stamp paper still needs to be printed out and created for legal purposes, which the vendor often does and sends it to us or shreds it. But in cases where we receive it, we now can take your contact details and have that be rerouted to your doorstep directly. Apart from this, there are a bunch of other subscription and service related updates that I want to quickly run over again. If you're somebody that's from the healthcare or the life sciences industry, you must know that we now have a separate controls module for complying with the life sciences regulations, like the 21 CFR Part 11 in the US, or the the EU GMP Annex 11 Volume 4 in the EU. To comply with these, we've built a completely different module that allows you to restrict certain functionality within the application and exert control and sort of create this closed environment within which your documents are signed and signature level credentialing is enforced and so on. So we have the control measures 1.1, which went out earlier in the year, which extends the controls to cover envelope correction, which allows you to correct documents within an envelope, the workflow of an envelope while it is still in progress, but yet to be signed or approved. And then we released a second version, 1.2, which extended these controls to some of the other updates I mentioned earlier. That is the user groups, roles and permissions, merging of documents, setting up custom predefined reasons for visible signatures, and even exporting reports and audit trails in the form of a password protected PDF format. Um, Apart from this, we know that organizations do have no sort of hybrid needs where they do not always need to be within a controlled environment to send a document out. Even if they're a life sciences organization, only documents that pertain to life science operations would need to be kept within the environment. Other documents like HR documents, payroll documents, vendor documents with office supplies, etc., they wouldn't need to necessarily undergo this control measure all the time. So we have provided the option to disable these controls at the level of documents so as to suit your needs when you send documents out for signatures. Something that we lacked earlier was given that in the controls for life sciences uh, setup, you would need signers to be authenticated every time they add signatures. If somebody did not have a Zoho Sign account, or if somebody did not have a Zoho Sign account within the same data center, signing would not be possible because there was no way for us to authenticate them within the same data center. Often that is the case with the controlled environment, right? But now we've sort of achieved that through inter data center communication or authentication channel that allows you to perform authentication alone when getting documents signed. This therefore eliminates the need for signers to have a Zoho Sign account by default, or to be in the same data center, meaning they can be from any data center or even not have a Zoho Sign account to sign documents that are sent from a controls enabled account. We've also made a few service additions. We launched our service from dedicated data centers in Canada and Saudi Arabia earlier this year, and this is done in a manner so that customers in these regions can store their data within their geographies to comply with their local data privacy laws. And Zoho Sign is offered both as a standalone application and as a part of Zoho One in both these data centers. And to answer somebody else's question earlier, we do have a Node.js software development kit available for development now. We haven't published it anywhere yet because it's yet to have its a complete set of early adopters. So we want to have early adopters use it, give us feedback, and then we will publish it out. But if you need access to it, you can always write to us for a license request and we'll provide you with one. We made a few other service additions. Just to give you some summary, we expanded the availability of qualified electronic signatures through the EID authentication methods like It's Me and so on, which was earlier restricted only to the EU data center to all data centers now, meaning no matter which data center your account is based out of, you can avail these qualified electronic signatures so long as you have an EID that you can use for authentication and verification of your identity. And we've also expanded the number of methods available, meaning we've added a couple more vendors, especially for the country of Austria. We've added the Austrian ID and InfoCert, which allows these residents to sort of have more options to avail when they're signing documents. And when it comes to document timestamping, we have the options of Seiko and Global Sign across all data centers now, except for the EU, where you would need a QTSP, for which we have Wanataka. Now, earlier, Seiko was only available in the US and Japan data centers, but they were proving to be fairly popular simply because of their association with Time as a brand for a long time. So we chose to extend their services to other data centers as well, except the EU again, because that would require a different qualified trust service provider. A couple of nice to haves that were added in to the product in terms of the interface and to drive product adoption were the refer and earn program. So on the Zoho Sign interface, you have your accounts pane that slides in from the right. So if you click on your user profile picture, so over there you can find an option to refer and earn now. Essentially, it is a referral program where every new user that you refer to Zoho Sign would give you an incentive to sort of build credits in your Zoho wallet. So for each sign up that comes through your referral, you would receive $3 in Zoho wallet credit. And if they subscribe to a paid plan, then you will receive 15% of their invoice value in subscription of the subscription fee in wallet credits. So this can then be used by you to sort of continue your subscription going or upgrade your subscription or purchase new products. And each referred individual will in turn receive $100 in promotional wallet credits, which can be used to purchase and try new Zoho products. Uh, we've also introduced a fairly interactive new product walkthrough that handholds new users through our web app interface and its core functionality, and allows them to understand what each module does, what each function does better, so that they're able to navigate the app in a much better manner and use it to start signing documents. So before I end the session, I also want to sort of tell you that we have been recognized this year by a couple of well-known research analysts. I know some of you who are new to Zoho Sign are often wondering about what credentials we have. Whom do we have to say that we our service is good by X, a certain amount of industrial standards? Are there any independent bodies that can say this? And that's where these research analysts come in. They're independent bodies who do their own research and publish their reports, wherein they evaluate our applications alongside other vendors in the space and determine if we are doing good or not. So GigaOM, who's a well-known research analyst, has named Zoho Sign a leader and an outperformer in their radar report for e-signature solutions, while Frost and Sullivan, who are a well-known research firm, have sort of named Zoho Sign in a prime recognition on their Frost Radar report for electronic signature software in 2024. Just something that I'm dropping here so that you can use this information later on in case you really want to sort of be assured in your choice of choosing Zoho Sign for your business operations. So with that, let me quickly run you through what's brewing in 2025. This is just going to be 2 slides, and I'm going to be sort of running through a few features here. Some of it may make sense, some of it not, but I hope to turn a few eyes here because some of these I'm sure will be very handy. So what's coming in the app, we are going to be bringing in the ability to protect all your files when being downloaded or attached with a password. We are going to support delivery of envelopes via WhatsApp and other instant messaging apps soon. We also have more enhancements to webhooks wherein you can get notified for webhook failures and have them automatically disabled when they fail consecutively. We have an entirely new role of recipients called manager recipients that's coming up. And essentially, what they do is they determine the role of the subsequent recipients within a workflow, meaning they can choose to add more recipients, assign them as signers or approvers, and so on. Basically, you kick off the workflow, but your workflow is open-ended, and the manager decides what to do with your workflow and documents. That's what we're looking to bring in here. We are also going to support custom SMTP configurations so that you can configure your simple mail transfer protocol records, your SPF records, and have your mails never land in spam. That is something that continues to keep happening for a lot of people simply because the DKIM verification is not something that is enough these days. You need to have multiple sources of confirmation of your domain ownership verification. You have your DMARC, you have your DKIM. Now you can have your own SPF record as well through SMTP, allowing you to have your emails delivered in an assured manner. We are going to also support bulk signing on embedded interfaces, customizing the time zone option for recipients. We are revamping our Android mobile interface. It was something that we were doing alongside our Apple mobile interface, but we are still in the process of getting the Android version out. We will soon also be web content accessibility guidelines, that is WCAG 2.1 compliant. We are well into the process of changing up our user interface to ensure they are more accessible to people who may have difficulty not dealing with the normal application. We are going to be adding support for more languages. We anticipate the addition of almost another 20 languages by the end of 2025. I do not want to give you hope, but that is what we are really striving to achieve. But let's see where we get by the end of next year. And in terms of integrations and services, we are priming up to launch new data centers in the UAE, in Singapore, and UK. These will take some time to get launched as there's a lot of legal paperwork, there's a lot of infrastructural requirements that need to be satisfied before we can set the ball rolling for services to be made public. But nonetheless, this is work in progress, so we hope to have it done by the end of the next year. We are planning to roll out integrations with Zoho projects and with Manage Engine's Service Desk Plus platform. We also are trying to support mail merge with Google Documents as opposed to what you have within the Zoho ecosystem now. And we are also revamping our integrations with Zoho Recruit and Zoho WorkDrive. And something that will be available soon enough is the ability to import and export documents from Microsoft SharePoint. This gives you one more option to sort of work, one more application to work with within the Microsoft ecosystem where documents are produced and stored. We're also adding multiple trust services to our portfolio of trust services, but one vendor that we are very close to finalizing integration with is IgniSign. But our compliance work is always running in parallel with our engineering work in terms of features. So we will always take a two-pronged approach, ensure we build compliance and features in parallel. So with that, I've come to the end of my webinar. I'm putting up some resources for you to take a look at. So we have our own knowledge base that gives you complete step-by-step tutorial on how to use the applications. You can check out our integrations, our API documentation if you're a developer. You can also take a look at our community forums where you can interact with other Zoho Sign users, ask your questions, post discussions, ideas, etc. We are revamping our legal guide. So right now, our legal guide just tells you what laws apply to which country and whether Zoho Sign can be used or not. But soon enough, we are going to come up with a comprehensive legal guide across geographies, wherein for each country we dive into the law, the requirements at a clause level, and say how Zoho Sign complies with that exact laws and so on. Now, the pages are already published for about 30 countries. It's just that we haven't really changed the links within our legal guide. But if you just Google things, say just write legality guide Zoho Sign, United Kingdom or European Union or something like that, you will find our latest page, and that is fairly comprehensive in the way we are putting information across. You can always request a personalized demo by signing up on the demo link, or you could request a paid one-on-one training, which is 2 full days of training you on Zoho Sign, all its integrations, its API, and all its resources that we basically make available for our customers to use the application to its fullest potential. This would really come in handy if you're a large organization administrator hoping to implement the app for hundreds of users. If you want to hear from our existing customers, you can always check out our customers page. And if you have feedback, you can write to us at support@zohosign.com. For the EU, you can write to us at support@eu.zohosign.com. And you can follow us on social media on X, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn for regular updates. So if you follow us on these platforms, you really wouldn't need to attend our year-end webinar where we run through all these updates in a very quick span of time. Rather, you can be always on top of what we've released and try it out as and when they're done. All right. With that being the case, I don't want to hold you back for too long. Thank you, everybody, for joining me in this webinar. And I hope to catch you all in a webinar in 2025. And I hope you have a great time using Zoho Sign until then. And with that, I'll take my leave. Happy holidays, and I hope you all have a great New Year's. See you.